Hello everyone, my name is Heiach, and welcome to the first in a possible new series, if you guys all like this. You see, I was looking at all the new Generation 8 Pokemon that came out with Sword and Shield, and I was also looking at all the original Generation 1 artwork done by Ken Sugimori. And I thought to myself, what would the new Pokemon look like in the old art style? And that, my friends, is what we're going to discover in this video. The first Pokemon that I thought I'd give the old Gen 1 treatment to is Applin, arguably my favourite Pokemon introduced in Generation 8. Before I started, I looked at some similar Pokemon from the previous generations. For the grass type aspect of Applin, I looked towards Weepinbell and Oddish. I also took some ideas from Cherubi and Pumpkaboo, seeing as they're Pokemon of existing fruits and vegetables with faces on them. Now, as you probably know, Applin is based off the old worm and the apple myth. So for the dragon or worm part, I looked towards Caterpie, Weedle and Dratini. As I often do before I start, as a warm-up, I usually sketch the Pokemon as it currently is, as well as sketching out my reference Pokemon as well. I decided to keep Applin's basic shape, and from there I added my own interpretation. I added a spiral stalk, and I cut the apple in half. And then I started playing around with all kinds of different eyes. At one point I went with tiny beady eyes and a big derpy grin. I gave my Pokemon a tail out the back, much like the actual Applin has. And I turned the leaves on the stalk into hands. I even went so far as to finish colouring it. But I came back to it after a while, and I just wasn't happy with it. So I started reworking it. I felt that I liked the cut apple style, and went along with it further. I decided to make the mouth actually cut into the apple, and then it was on to deciding what kind of eyes I wanted again. Eventually I went with Bellsprout eyes. I got rid of the hand leaves because I thought they looked pretty terrible, and instead gave him a leaf not unlike Chikorita's. And I decided that the tail should actually be a tongue. So here's what I ended up with eventually. I'm actually pretty happy with this. It's nowhere near what I intended, but then again, that is the creative process. You just paint and draw and see what happens. For my second Pokemon, I chose Toxel, which I believe I'm correct in saying is based off a poison dart frog. So I grabbed a couple of pictures of those. For reference Pokemon, I drew inspiration from Krogunk and Froakie, as well as Poliwag and Coughing. Well, he is a poison type after all. I do usually try not to make it too obvious where I got each part from, but I did really like Toxagunk's eyes and head shape. I removed the grin and gave him a much longer tongue. I took the hands and legs from Froakie and added my own style. And from the actual Toxel design, I took the head spikes, but instead made them into headphones. The stripes on the arms and knees I took from Elekid, as were the lightning bolts too. I gave him some toad-like warts on his head and along his back. These I took from Coughing. And because he's a poison type, I made him predominantly purple. I made the lightning bolts white as they are in the actual Toxel. I made the headphones purple to match the overall theme, seeing as back in Gen 1 they didn't have too many colours, so adding another one just seemed a bit out of place. For my third Pokemon, I went with Scorbunny. After doing a lot of browsing of Gen 1 Pokemon, I realised there are none that are really that similar, and if Scorbunny was made back in 1996, it probably would have been a lot chubbier, as were most Pokemon back then. Think about the old style Pikachu. As a base, I started with the body of Clefable, and drew inspiration from Wigglytuff, Chansey, Azumarill, Bunnelby, Vulpix and Ponyta. I spent a lot of the creative process with my Scorbunny looking a lot like a Fable. I started with Flareon's ears, but after a while they just seemed too pointed, so I based them off Azumarill instead. After that, taking key points from Clefairy, I gave my Scorbunny a big face in the centre of its blob-like body. I gave it a fiery tail based off Ponyta's flames, and for the feet I took from a ground-type Pokemon, Sandslash. Well, bunnies do burrow on the ground after all. I just wasn't happy with the massive face, so I shrunk it, and added some flame tufts around the arms. Eventually though, I took some ideas from Bunnelby and made my Scorbunny a lot slimmer. I also decided, for some reason, to give him flaming arms. One of the key points of Scorbunny is it's based off soccer because it likes to score, and soccer players can't use their arms, so why not make them fiery? At one point he had a big fluffy cloud tail. But in the end I decided the arms were enough, and to just give him a flame motif on his feet and ears. And then I decided that the face just wasn't doing it for me, so I started playing around with eyes yet again. I grabbed loads of Gen 1 eyes to play around with, including Nidorans and Charmanders, as well as Clefairies and Azumarills. But eventually I decided to go with Wigglytuffs. They just seemed to have the right amount of depth that I was looking for. I made the mouth a lot more joyful, and the nose smaller. I gave him Bunnelby's big rounded cheeks, but I removed the whiskers. And in the end, I decided to just go for a circular tail. Eventually, after a long process, and I mean a long process, I was happy with what I had and started to colour it in. Initially, I went with mostly white, as the actual Scorbunny has, but then I thought about Gen 1. Pokemon back then were made to be colourful and bright, and very rarely had lots of white. They usually had a lot of pink and brown instead. This was mostly due, I believe, to the Game Boy Color coming out, and Game Freak wanted the Pokemon to pop out the screen and be vibrant and colourful, so having Pokemon that were mostly black and white just wouldn't do. And here's my final design that I went with. I'm not too sure if I like this or the white one, so I put them both here. Let me know in the comments below which you prefer. So yeah, here are the 3 Pokemon that I decided to give the Gen 1 treatment to. I think they look suitably different from the modern designs, but please do let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching, and hopefully I'll catch you next time.